Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. So as we were discussing about the spinal cord in the last video, we have covered the protective layers of the spinal cord, then the external anatomy of the spinal cord, the internal anatomy, how the gray and the white matter is distributed, what the different areas are known as, and also we have seen how the signal which enters the CNS through the spinal nerves, how it is integrated and how the output is given. Okay, so what is that sequence we have seen in brief. Okay. Now in today's video we shall continue with the functions of the spinal cord. Okay, so the spinal cord plays a very important role in the homeostasis by carrying out two main functions, that is propagation of the nerve impulse, that is a nerve impulse enters the CNS through the spinal cord. So we have seen that the spinal nerves will bring in the impulse. So that will enter the spinal cord through the posterior root and the rootlets. It will enter the grey matter or the white matter, and then it will relate towards the brain for the integrative function. So also the output which is given by the brain in the form of motor functions. Okay, so the motor signals which are given or motor impulses which are given by the brain after the integrative function has been carried out, after processing the information, some output must be produced. So that output is also carried along the spinal cord and it will exit the spinal cord through the anterior root and it will reach the effector organ and some change will occur, right? So the impulse which is traveling towards the brain or away from the brain is carried by the spinal cord. So in various areas of the spinal cord, usually the tracts as they are called as group of the axons, so they are present in several areas of the white matter. So that's the function of the white matter of the spinal cord. So nerve impulse propagation takes place along these tracts. So tracts are the group of axons in the CNS, whereas a group of axons in the peripheral nervous system PNS, they are called as the nerves. So there are cranial nerves and the spinal nerves which are bringing in the information and taking the information away from the CNS. But within the CNS, the information is carried by these tracts which are present in the white matter of the CNS. So in the spinal cord, the white matter mainly comprises of these tracts which are acting as the highways, you can say, to carry this particular information. So the propagation of this nerve impulse takes place along these tracts. Okay, so sensory input will travel towards the brain and the motor outputs will travel from the brain along these tracts towards the peripheral nervous system. So they will exit the spinal cord and they will reach their effector organs. So it may be a skeletal muscle or some other tissue, smooth muscle in some visceral organ or a gland or cardiac muscle, depending upon what input was given. Okay, so that's one of the function of the spinal cord. The second important function is the integration of the information. So the main function of the brain is the integration, right? In the CNS, if you consider the brain and the spinal cord, most of the sensory information which is brought towards the CNS, it is processed by the brain, the higher center as it is called as. It's mainly the cerebral cortex which gives the output. But there are some processing which take place at the spinal level also. The spinal cord may also have the integrative function. So the gray matter of the spinal cord, it receives and integrates some of the information, and such type of integration, it is called as a reflex, which is mediated at the spinal level. So the information is not processed by the brain, but the processing takes place in the spinal cord itself, because you have to respond very quickly. So such kind of response is known as a reflex. Okay, so we shall consider both these functions in detail. We shall see how exactly the impulse is being propagated along the spinal cord. So what are those different areas? What are they called as? And in which direction they are carrying what type of information? Okay, so there are accordingly two types of tracts, right? Because some information will be transmitted towards the brain. That function is carried out by the sensory tracts, right? Sensory means sensory neurons. What are sensory neurons? These are the ones which carry the signal towards the CNS. So in this case, it will be conveying the signal towards the brain for processing. And the motor tracts are the ones which are carrying the information away from the brain towards some effector organ. Okay, so these are the motor neurons. These contain the axons of the motor neurons, because they are carrying the information away from the CNS, right? Okay, so these are the two types of tracts, sensory tracts and the motor tracts. Okay, so in this particular picture, some of the tracts are shown in blue in color and some of them are shown in red in color. The ones which are shown in blue in color, these are the sensory tracts, or these are also known as ascending tract. Why ascending tracts? That's because they are moving in the upward direction towards the brain. Brain is located superior to the spinal cord, right? So that's why these are also called as ascending tracts or the sensory tracts. Whereas the motor tracts, which are carrying the information away from the brain, these are also called as descending tracts, because they will be carrying the information away from the brain. So these will be descending downwards. So these are named so depending upon the direction in which they are carrying the information. So accordingly, these are marked differentially in this particular picture. Okay. So this particular function of the spinal cord, that plays a very important role in the maintenance of the homeostasis, right? Imagine if these tracts do not function, what will happen? The sensory as well as the motor functions of the CNS will get affected. So if the sensory tract is not functioning, what will happen? Will you come to know any sensory stimulus which is taking place in the periphery? So whatever tract is damaged, whatever information that particular tract is carrying towards your brain, obviously you will not be able to feel that, right? You will not be able to sense that. Imagine a motor tract, if it gets damaged, what will happen? Even though your brain can sense it, it will not be able to give the output. Output is carried out by these particular motor tracts. So if any of these motor tracts are non-functional, obviously the output which is given by the brain or the spinal cord, that will not reach the effector organ. So execution of the response towards a particular stimulus is not possible. Okay, so that's the importance of these tracts in the spinal cord. Okay, now coming towards the names of these tracts. As you can see that these are named in a specific manner. Lateral cortico-spinal tract, okay, spinothalamic tract, anterior corticospinal tract. Okay. Now name of these particular tracts, they indicate their position in the white matter, where exactly they are located. Anterior. Now why anterior? Can you justify why it is called as an anterior corticospinal tract? That's because it is located in the anterior white column, right? Remember the internal anatomy of the spinal cord? White matter, it is divided into three areas, right? Anterior columns, posterior columns, white columns, and the lateral columns, right? So depending upon which area it is located in, it is named. So since it is located in the anterior white columns, it is named as anterior. So this first word indicates where exactly it is located, and the next word indicates where it begins and where it is ending. Corticospinal tract means it is originating in the cerebral cortex and it ends in the spinal cord. That's why it is named as corticospinal tract. Okay, so the area where the axon terminals are located, this name is given at the end. Okay, so it is an anterior corticospinal tract. So it is traveling from cerebral cortex towards the spinal cord. So what type of tract it will be? Will it be a sensory tract or will it be a motor tract? Yes, it will be a motor tract. So it is shown in red in color. Okay, so that's the example how the nomenclature of these tracts is carried out. Okay, so this name will signify the location of these tracts also and the direction in which the information is flowing along these tracts. So you can easily track what type of tract it is, whether it is an ascending tract or whether it is a motor tract. Okay, now the sensory information, it is carried along the spinal cord towards the brain by two main routes on either sides. It is shown only on one side, but it is carried on either sides. So these two main sensory tracts include the spinothalamic tract and the posterior column. Okay. So this is the spinothalamic tract, this one, and the posterior column. The spinothalamic tract, so it's very clear that it's a sensory tract because it is moving from spinal cord towards the thalamus. So it's moving towards the higher center. So it's a sensory tract. So it is conveying the nerve impulses for the sense of pain, warmth, coolness, itching, tickling, deep pressure and crude touch. Crude touch means it's not possible for you to discriminate from where exactly it is originating. Okay, so that's a crude touch. Then the posterior column, this is the one. Okay, so posterior column, similarly it is also located over here on either sides. So these are the two grooves which are dividing your spinal cord into two halves, as we have seen. Okay, so it is shown only on one half. The same tracts are also present on the opposite side. Okay, so the posterior column, it comprises of two tracts, gracile fasciculus and cuneate fasciculus. So this posterior column tracts, they usually carry the impulses for discriminative touch. A discriminative touch is the one in which you are able to identify what is the origin of the touch, where exactly it is originating. It is also known as fine touch. Even the impulses for light pressure, vibration or conscious proprioception. Proprioception, it is the awareness of the position and the movement of the muscles and tendons and the joints. That's sensed by the proprioceptors, right? You come to know what is your body position. Even if you close your eyes, you will be able to understand in what position you are, right? Whether you are sitting, whether you are lying, whether if you make some movements of your hands, you will come to know, right? Without looking at it, you come to know what is your own body position. Isn't it? How your joints are, whether they are folded, whether they are stretched, you come to know that, right? So that's because of this conscious proprioception which is carried by these posterior columns. This information is carried by the posterior columns. Okay, so these sensory system, so all these sensory tracts will keep the CNS informed about the changes which are taking place in the external as well as internal environments. Correct? So any change in the external as well as internal environment, it is sensed by some sensory receptors, and that information is carried along the sensory neuron towards your spinal cord, and then it is propagated along these tracts towards your brain for the perception. And if required, some integrative function is carried out. Okay, so it is integrated. Whatever sensory information is brought by these sensory neurons from either the internal or external environment, this information is integrated or processed by the interneurons which are located in the spinal cord as well as the brain. And accordingly, appropriate responses are given, is what we have seen, in the form of motor activities. Maybe some muscular contraction or glandular secretion will take place in response to that stimulus. If required, it will happen. Say for example, if you are moving out of the house and suddenly it starts raining, what happens? You sense that raindrops are falling on your skin. So you come to know that it is raining. You see the rain, that is also an input. And what you do? Your brain processes it. Okay, now it's raining. What should I do? Either find a shelter if you do not have an umbrella, or open the umbrella if you have it. So that's the response which is given as a result of the integrative decisions which are taken by either the brain or the spinal cord. Okay, so some muscular contractions or the secretions will take place in the body in response to that sensory information which is being brought towards the CNS. Okay, so it's mainly the cerebral cortex, which is the outer part of the brain, which is actually controlling the precise voluntary muscular movements. There are certain other areas in the brain which are providing the integration for regulation of autonomic movements also. Now whatever the output may be, okay, that is called as a motor output towards the skeletal muscles. So that will travel down along the spinal cord in two types of descending pathways. There are two main types of descending pathways. These are the direct and the indirect pathways. Coming to the direct pathways, these include several tracts. Lateral corticospinal tract, because it is located in the lateral column, right? Similarly, there is an anterior corticospinal tract in the anterior column. Corticobulbar tract. Okay, so these are all the motor tracts which are descending downwards. So they are conveying the nerve impulse which is originating in the cerebral cortex, and these will convey the impulses for voluntary movements of certain skeletal muscles. Now, apart from this, there are indirect pathways which include the rubrospinal tract, the tectospinal tract, the vestibulospinal tract, lateral reticulospinal tract, the medial reticulospinal tract. So all of these are the motor tracts which convey the nerve impulses from the brain stem to cause some autonomic movements, also help in coordinate some body movements with the visual stimuli. So as a result of some visual input, body movements may take place. So these are directed through the indirect pathway. Okay, so they also help in maintaining the skeletal muscle tone, sustain the contractions of the postural muscles which are involved in the posture, maintenance of the posture, also play a major role in equilibrium by regulating the muscle tone in response to the movements of the head. Okay, so these are the sensory and the motor tracts. Okay, so this is how the impulse is propagated. The nerve impulse is propagated by the spinal cord in either direction, that is towards the brain and away from the brain, in the form of sensory as well as the motor tracts. So coming to the next function of the spinal cord, that is the integrative function. So it also acts as an integrating center also for certain responses, not for all. Okay, so some responses called as the reflexes are integrated at the spinal level. Now what is a reflex? It is a fast, involuntary, unplanned sequence of actions that occurs in response to a particular stimulus. And why it is called as a reflex? Because it is taking place at a very fast rate and it is integrated by the spinal cord. Now, some of these reflexes, these are inborn. Say for example, if you touch a hot surface, what do? Do you keep thinking whether I should remove my hand or whether I should keep it over there? Or do you wait somebody to tell you that it is a hot surface, withdraw your hand? Does it happen? What do? When you accidentally touch a hot surface, will you do it purposefully? No. So when you feel that heat, what do? You remove your hand immediately, right? Within a fraction of seconds. The moment you touch it, you remove it. So that kind of reflex is known as an inborn reflex. Nobody has to teach you about this, or you don't learn it. There are certain skills which you learn, certain skills which you have inborn, right? So similarly, certain reflexes are inborn. And some other reflexes are learned or acquired. Say for example, driving. Now, do you know driving as you are born? No, somebody has to teach you driving, right? So when you are driving, when you are learning it, suddenly if somebody comes in front of your car, what do? Immediately you slam the brakes, right? So that's an emergency, correct? Because you need to save the life. So that's an emergency. Do somebody have to tell you that? Somebody has to tell you, apply the brakes? No. It happens, right? So that's a reflex which is an acquired one. So ever after you learn to tackle that emergency situation, right? So that's an learned or acquired reflex. Okay. Now reflexes again can be of different types depending upon where the processing has taken place. Now say for example where the integration has taken place in the grey matter of the spinal cord, So that particular reflex is known as a spinal reflex. Example is the patellar reflex or knee jerk. Now if the integration takes place in the brain stem, and that's a lower area of your brain, right? So it's not taking place in the spinal cord, but it is taking place in the brain stem. Yet the information is not reaching the higher center. It is getting integrated at the brain stem. So this such kind of reflex is called as a cranial reflex. Now what is an example of the cranial reflex? And as I am talking, you are reading this statement, right? So your eyes are tracking what exactly I am speaking from this particular slide. Supposing if I suddenly start reading the last line, so your eyes will immediately shift to that last line, right? So they involve responses of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle and glands. So as I am reading this, your eyes are tracking that statement now. So immediately your eyes have shifted to that last line. So this particular information, it is integrated at the brain stem, and that is called as a cranial reflex. And there is something called somatic reflexes. So it's a reflex wherein contraction of some skeletal muscles is involved. So that is called as a somatic reflex. Also there is an autonomic or visceral reflex. So this type of reflex is the one wherein conscious perception is absent. That is, you do not come to know that it has happened. Now cranial reflex, you come to know, right, where your eyes are tracking, what they are reading, you come to know it, right? Even in case of spinal reflexes, you have withdrawn your hand. You come to know, right, that you have withdrawn your hand. You come to know that that reflex has occurred. In case of somatic reflexes, you come to know which area the skeletal muscles have contracted, isn't it? Now if I am moving my hand, I come to know that the skeletal muscles in my hand are moving. They are contracting. But in this case, you do not come to know that the reflex has occurred. Smooth muscle contraction. Do you come to know which smooth muscles are contracting in your body? If the smooth muscle, if I say that right now the smooth muscles of the GI tract are contracting because of the peristaltic movement, do you come to know which smooth muscles are contracting? In which area? Cardiac muscles. Your heart is constantly contracting and relaxing. Do you come to know that the cardiac muscles are contracting? Or a gland is secreting some secretions? It's a continuous process. Simplest case is your saliva. Saliva is continuously being secreted in your mouth to keep it moist. But do you come to know that those glands are secreting the secretions? Say internal glands, your endocrine glands, they are secreting the hormones. Do you come to know? No. And that type of reflex is called as the autonomic or the visceral reflex. Okay, so these are the different types of reflexes. Okay, so now this particular reflex which occurs, it's not a one-step reaction which is taking place. So there are some sequence of propagation of information, processing of information which is taking place, right? So some change should occur which should be sensed. Then that information will be carried towards your CNS. Your CNS, that is either the brain or the spinal cord. So we are talking about the spinal cord. So spinal cord will process it. Then the information will be given in the form of motor output. And then the effector organ will respond. So all this entire process, the pathway which is followed by these nerve impulses to produce a reflex, that is called as a reflex arm. So there is a particular direction in which this information will move. There is a particular sequence of events which will take place. First will be what? Sensation. So that will be sensed by the sensory receptor. Second will be carrying that information towards your CNS. So that work is done by the sensory neuron. Third step will be the integration. This is what we have seen, right, in the earlier lecture. Third step will be the processing of that information. And if required, some output will be given that will be carried through these motor neurons. And then the effector organ where the motor neuron is supplying, it will give some output. It will produce some change as per the requirement. So this particular definite pathway which is followed to carry out this particular reflex, that is called as a reflex arc or a reflex circuit, and it has 5 main functional components, that is a sensory receptor, sensory neuron, integrating center, motor neuron and the effector. So these are the 5 main components. Always a reflex arc will have all these 5 components. Okay, so let us understand it with the help of an example. So the first step will be the sensation by the sensory receptor. So the distal end of the sensory neuron, that is the dendrites, or an associated sensory structure which will serve as the sensory receptor over here in the skin. So if you come across a tack is a nail. So if it pierces your skin, what will happen? It will initiate some stimulus, right? It will be painful. So do you feel that pain or no? And accordingly you respond to it, right? That all that sequence which is carried out, that is a part of the reflex. Because if you step on a tack, you immediately withdraw your leg, right? So that's a reflex. So this is a sensory receptor which responds to a particular stimulus and it produces a graded potential called a generator or receptor potential. Now if this graded potential, if it reaches the threshold level, remember the threshold level minus 55 millivolts. So if it reaches the threshold level, it will result in depolarization. So it will trigger an impulse, nerve impulse in the sensory neuron. So this sensory neuron, it will propagate this information from the sensory receptor towards the CNS. Okay, so these axons will carry this information along the posterior route. It will enter your spinal cord or brain stem in the grey matter. So from here the information will be relayed towards the brain so that you come to know that the reflex has occurred, for you to make it aware. So there will be one more signal sent towards the brain. Okay. Now third step is the integration. Now which is the integrating center? It is the grey matter which is located in the CNS. So in this case it will be the spinal cord itself, the grey matter in the spinal cord. So this acts as a integrating center. Now in the simplest reflex arc, the integrating center is a single synapse between the sensory neuron and the motor neuron. Here there is one more neuron which is placed in between. But in the simplest arc, it comprises of only one synapse in the CNS. And that type of reflex, it is called as monosynaptic reflex arc, because only one synapse is involved. Not in this case. Sometimes it happens that only one synapse will occur. So whatever information is brought by the sensory neuron, it is directly passed on to the motor neuron in terms of the output. Okay. So in most of the cases, the integrating center, it comprises of the interneurons which will carry out this function of processing. So this will give an output to the motor neuron. Now here what has happened? Now there is one synapse over here and there is a second synapse over here. So what will happen? There are two synapses involved, right? So it is a type of polysynaptic reflex arc. There is more than one synapse which is involved in the CNS. So it's a polysynaptic reflex. So as a result of this integrated information, some motor output will be given. So the impulses which are triggered by this integrating center, it propagates out of the CNS along this motor neuron. And it will move towards the part of the body which needs to be responded. Maybe a muscle or a gland. So this particular action is a reflex. So whatever response is given, maybe contraction of the muscle or some secretion, that's a reflex. So to carry out this reflex, these are the 5 components which function. Now supposing if the effector is a skeletal muscle, then the reflex is called as a somatic reflex. Supposing if the effector it is a smooth muscle or a cardiac muscle or a gland, then it is called as an autonomic reflex. Now let us take up some examples of the reflexes. First one is the stretch reflex. So the stretching of the skeletal muscles needs to be relieved, right? So the stretch reflex, it is initiated in response to stretching of the muscles. So it causes the contraction of these skeletal muscles where overstretching has taken place. So this will prevent any kind of damage to the muscles due to overstretching. Otherwise, if the stretching continues, the muscles will get damaged, right? And this type of reflex occurs via monosynaptic reflex arc usually. Okay, so there is only one synapse in the CNS. Okay, the examples of these stretch reflex include the tapping of the tendons which are attached to the skeletal muscles in the elbow or the wrist, knees or ankle joint. So a stretch reflex will be initiated. Patellar reflex is the best example over here. Okay, so stretch reflex, it operates as follows. So slight stretching of the muscles. So these are the muscles which are present in your thigh. So if there is stretching in these muscles, they will stimulate the sensory receptors which are located in the muscle. So the muscle spindles, they act as the sensory receptor. So this stretching is sensed by these muscle spindles, okay, which are continuously monitoring the changes in length of the muscle. Now in response to these stretched muscles, the muscle spindle will generate a nerve impulse, one or more nerve impulses. So these particular nerve impulses which are generated, these are carried by the sensory neurons, somatic sensory neurons towards the spinal cord. So it will enter the posterior root. Remember, the posterior root of the spinal cord, it carries the sensory neurons. So this will enter into the spinal cord. Now in the spinal cord, now this is your integrating center. So here the sensory neurons make the excitatory synapse. Excitatory, remember, it stimulates the postsynaptic neuron to produce a depolarizing potential, right? So it is stimulating this motor neuron. Remember, this is a monosynaptic arc. This is your sensory neuron and it is synapsing directly with your motor neuron. So there is only one synapse present over here. So it's a monosynaptic arc. So here it is directly activating a motor neuron in the anterior gray horn. So it will generate an action potential in this motor neuron and this will be propagated along the axon, which will leave this spinal cord through the anterior horn. It will enter the spinal nerve and it will stimulate the muscle. So here the axon terminals are located of this motor neuron. These are located in the muscle. So they are forming a synapse with the muscle. So it's an NMJ, neuromuscular junction. Okay, so if the acetylcholine is released in this NMJ, it triggers one or more muscle action potential in the stretched muscle. So the same muscle are acting as effector now. So these stretched muscles will get contracted and it will relieve the stretching. So at the same time now, as you can see that there is one signal which is sent to the brain. So you will come to know that the stretching is relieved. So you will move your leg. So the stretching will be relieved. Now at the same time, the same sensory neuron is also resulting in passing the inhibitory potentials towards the antagonistic muscles. So these muscles will relax and it will result in movement of your leg. Now, one thing you should note in this particular reflex arc is that the sensory nerve impulse is entering the spinal cord and the motor nerve impulse is leaving the spinal cord from the same side, right? So this type of arrangement of a reflex arc is called as a ipsilateral reflex. Ipsilateral means same side. All the monosynaptic reflexes, these are ipsilateral in nature. So entry of the sensory information and exit of the motor information, it takes place from the same side of the spinal cord. Then the next example is the tendon reflex. So this type of reflex, it operates as a feedback mechanism to control the muscle tension. In stretch reflex, the length of the muscle was being monitored. Now in this type of reflex, the muscle tension is being monitored. And in response to this, muscle relaxation will take place before the excessive tension will tear the tendons. Okay, now this particular type of reflex is also ipsilateral in nature. That is, it enters and exits from the same side. And the receptors over here, the sensory receptors are the tendon organs or the Golgi tendons. Tendon, it is a part which joins your skeletal muscles to your bone. So this is monitoring the tension in your muscles. So if there is excessive tension in the muscles, it will result in pulling on the tendons and it might tear if it is not relieved. Okay, so here it is responding towards the changes in the muscle tension rather than the muscle length, which is being responded in case of the stretch reflex, which we have seen just now. So coming to the tendon reflex, let us see how exactly it is operated. So obviously the input will be at the tendons, right? So the tendon organ, it is actually acting as a sensory receptor, which is continuously monitoring the tension in these particular muscles. So as the tension is applied, the tendon organs is stimulated, it is depolarized to the threshold, a nerve impulse will be generated. So this will be carried by the sensory neuron and will be propagated towards the spinal cord along the sensory neuron. Now in the spinal cord, what will happen? Integrative function will take place. So the sensory neuron, what it does, it is activating an inhibitory interneuron. Now this is an inhibitory interneuron. As you can see over here, it is stimulated. But what this interneuron is doing? Is it stimulating the motor neuron? No. It is resulting in development of IPSP, inhibitory postsynaptic potential. So as a result of this, what will happen? Inhibitory neurotransmitters, they inhibit the motor neurons. So hyperpolarization is being produced over here. So that the stimulation of this motor neuron is decreased. So this motor neuron, it will generate less number of nerve impulses. So as a result of this inhibitory transmission, this particular motor neuron, it is not stimulated, so it is inhibited. As a result of this, the muscles are relaxed and it will relieve the excessive tension. Now simultaneously what is happening? The same sensory neuron is also sending signals towards the brain to tell you that your limb has moved, right? So you come to know that it has occurred. And at the same time, one more thing is happening. It is also sending the excitatory signals towards the antagonistic muscle. So they contract. So as a result of this, you move your leg and the excessive tension will be relieved on the tendons. Okay, so here it will result in relaxation of the muscles which are pulling on the tendons. So this particular reflex will protect your tendons and muscles from getting damaged due to excessive tension. And one more type of reflex is the flexor and the crossed extensor reflexes. Now this particular type of reflexes, these are polysynaptic reflex arc. Remember what is a polysynaptic reflex arc? Wherein more than one synapses are involved in the CNS. Now this type of reflexes occur when you step on a tack. That is a sharp pointed nail. Supposing if you are walking barefoot and you step on a tack, what happens? You are looking here and there and you accidentally step on a tack. Suddenly what happens? You lift that foot, right, which has stepped on this tack, right? So you immediately withdraw your leg from that. And this particular type of reflex is called as flexor or withdrawal reflex. So this operates in the following manner. So first step is, as you step on that tack, it will stimulate the sensory receptors, that is the dendrites of the pain receptors in your foot. Now here the spinal cord is shown out of the body, right? It's actually located over here. So for the convenience of the operation of this particular reflex, to understand it in a better way, it is shown over here. Okay, so actually this nerve impulse will be traveling along your leg and it will travel towards your spinal cord. Okay, now as you step on a tack, the sensory receptors will be stimulated. So as a result of this, what will happen? The sensory neuron will be carrying that nerve impulse. So that signal will be propagated towards the spinal cord. And this third step involves the integration, right? So this information has reached your spinal cord now. Now it needs to be processed. So what is happening? This sensory neuron, it is activating the interneurons that extend to several spinal cord segments. In all the earlier figures which we had seen, only one segment was shown, right? Remember what are segments? The spinal cord, for convenience, it is said to be divided into several segments depending upon the spinal nerves which are leaving the spinal cord at the different levels, right? So now this is one level. So just above that will be the next segment, below that will be another segment, and so on. So your actually this sensory neuron, it is entering at this particular point. But as an integrative function, what is happening? This particular sensory information, it is spreading towards the neighboring segments also. Okay, so these interneurons which are getting activated in different segments, they will activate a motor neuron, right? So this interneuron, it is processed that information that you have stepped on a tack and your leg must be withdrawn from that particular area. So that integration is carried out by these interneurons at different levels, at different segments, and as a result of this, a motor neuron, it generates a nerve impulse, so which is propagated towards the axon terminal. So this motor neuron at different segments is getting stimulated now. So entry is taking place only at one segment, but the information spreads in different segments and the output also is given at different segments, right? So there are three motor neurons which are stimulated over here. From here, this segment, this one and this one. But where they are supplying to? To the flexor muscle in the thigh. So that's your effector now. So what will happen? These flexor muscles will contract in order to withdraw your leg from here. So this is a protective reflex which is withdrawing yourselves from the danger. Okay, now this particular flexor reflex, it is a ipsilateral reflex, right? Because the entry and the exit, it is taking from the same side. So the incoming and outgoing impulses are propagating into and out of the spinal cord from the same side. That's why it is called as a ipsilateral reflex. Now, this is to do with one part. You withdraw your leg, right? You are walking and you withdraw your right leg. Now, when you withdraw your right leg, when you lift your right leg, what will happen? Your body weight will shift to the left leg, right? Because you are walking. Otherwise, what will happen? You will fall down. But do you fall down? No, you don't. As you withdraw your right leg, which has stepped on the tack, you balance your body weight on the left leg, right? So there are two reflexes which are involved over here. As you withdraw your right leg, there is one reflex which is operating, and as you balance your body weight on the another leg, one more reflex is also operating at the same time, and that is called as a crossed extensor reflex. So that will operate as follows. So this is what we have seen just now, right? Whatever is shown over here. Sensory stimulation, sensory neuron will carry that information. Interneurons are stimulated, wherein the signal will be transmitted to other segments also. And as an output, motor neuron will be stimulated at different segments and the flexor muscle will contract. You will withdraw your leg. But at the same time, this particular sensory receptor which has sensed this painful sensation, it will sense the pain and it will send the sensory signals towards your spinal cord. So it will generate a sensory impulse in the sensory neurons which will be propagated towards your spinal cord. Now within the spinal cord, one more processing has taken place now. This is what normally has taken place, right? To withdraw your leg. But as you can see, something else has happened. So your spinal cord, which is now an integrating center, there are separate set of interneurons which are activated, which synapse with the motor neurons on the left side of your spinal cord. As you can see here, the same sensory impulse is also stimulating some other set of interneurons also, which are crossing over to the opposite side. Now these sensory impulses which are stimulating these interneurons on the other side, these will carry the signals at the different levels of your spinal cord. At different segments of your spinal cord will be activated by these interneurons above and below the entry point, and these interneurons in turn will excite the motor neurons in the different segments of the spinal cord on the opposite side also. So these motor neurons are actually supplying to the extensor muscles of your left leg. Remember, your right leg had stepped onto that tack, right? So these interneurons which cross over to the opposite side towards the left hand side, these are stimulating the motor neurons which are supplying to the extensor muscles of the left leg. So as a result of this, what will happen? As a result of this, release of acetylcholine will take place over here, and the extensor muscles in the thigh, which act as effectors, they will contract. So as a result of this, what will happen? Your left leg, which was in air as you were walking, as you have stepped over here, this was actually in the air, but now it has quickly balanced your whole weight. That's because of this reflex. Okay. So this particular type of reflex, it is known as the contralateral reflex arc. Now why contralateral? Contralateral means opposite side. Now what has happened? The input was from the right hand side, but the output, it is moving out of the spinal cord from the left hand side, from the opposite side. Right? So that's why this type of reflex is known as contralateral reflex arc. Okay, so these are some of the examples of the reflexes. So we have covered the functions, two main functions of the spinal cord, that is the propagation of the nerve impulses in the form of sensory as well as motor tracts, and the reflexes, which is actually the integrative function of the spinal cord. So we have covered the different examples of the reflexes: the stretch reflex, tendon reflex, withdrawal reflex. Okay, this is the reference. Thank you for watching.